All right. Inappropriate Earl is back. We took a couple weeks off because the ratings were so high. We wanted to marinate in them a little bit and then come back with the man. This is a man who I first met almost 20 years ago when I saw him hosting Potluck at the Comedy Store. Now, keep in mind, I was new to the Comedy Store. I knew nothing about the outlaw days of the store in the early 2000s. And there was a kid from La Jolla who was bombing. You know, we all bomb in the original room, but keep in mind, this was very new to me. And the host got on the mic, and I can't do an impression of this man, but he said to this kid, "Where are you from?" And the kid meekly said, "La Jolla." And my next guest said, "Well, that drive just got a lot longer." And I thought, what a dick. And then John Little, my friend, was on stage, and the crowd was rough that night, and John was bombing, and John walked off halfway through a set, and the host got back on and said, "You've got to be professional." And John said, "I'll be professional when you pay me." And then the host said, "That's a bad attitude." And I thought, who is this host? He's larger than life, but kind of a dick. 20 years later, he's on my couch, and he is not only an icon at the Comedy Store, but he's one of maybe 2 or 3 comics that I will go to watch when I'm not on the lineup. There's Don Barris, there is Brian Holtzman, and my next guest, you know him from the Best Damn Sports Show, an audience warm-up extraordinaire from his HBO Go show, Enjoy It. You know him from his role in The Hangover. He's got 100,000 Twitter followers and is an institution in the Los Angeles comedy world. Put your hands together for the great Arizona State alumni baseball pitching phenom, Mr. Stephen Brody Stevens.
Yes, you got it. Thank you, Earl. What a great introduction. It was awesome. I guess I am a dick, but everything else was on point. No, yeah, that was right on. That was pretty much how it was when I hosted that night, the Potluck. I did that a few times back in the early 2000s, so that was right on. That was 18 years ago, almost 20 years ago, and yeah, Comedy Store was crazy.
Well, it just goes to show you can't really judge someone by your first impression of them.
Right, exactly.
Looking back now, what you did to the kid from La Jolla, who I've never seen since, I don't remember his name, I think it's hilarious.
Yeah, well, I was probably just being honest. I wasn't trying to be, mean. I was probably at that point doing a lot of audience warm-up, a lot of interaction. You watch these other guys host the Potluck on, it's Monday nights now. And they, some of the guys, they're harsh on the guys. They're pretty, that's how the Comedy Store was. It was about ripping guys. That was kind of, not that I was ripping them, but that kind of comedy's accepted. I mean, look, they have the roast battle. That's 20 years later, and that kind of stuff is still happening. I think comedians are probably a little tougher these days. Like you could have that same situation, one of the guys hosting today, and say, "Hey, that's going to be a long ride home," and they would probably laugh about it. I think comedians are a little tougher these days, knowing that they have the roast battle, and then there's with social media and the comments, you got to have a little bit of a thicker skin. So I was maybe ahead of my time.
Well, I just that was during the I should call it the darker era of the Comedy Store. It was kind of it's certainly not the Comedy Store that we know today, where you have, the OR is sold out, the main room sold out, the belly room sold out, the back bar is, vibrating with, celebrities and their friends.
Right.
This was back when there was no main room show. Because I remember very vividly it was a Sunday night. Certainly no main room show. I don't think there was a belly room show. I mean, the OR was it. And most of it was, comics. And this was back, like tomorrow night, if you go to see Potluck, the talent level's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
But back then it was almost like a bus depot had been dropped off there. And, you guys want to do stand-up? It wasn't the greatest array of talent.
Yeah, the Potluck.
Yeah, it was like, a lot of crazy people like Boone Shakalaka, Gaylord Dingler.
But they liked that. That was the charm of the Comedy Store, to see a Boone Shakalaka who's still there, or a Gaylord, or whoever. These there were a lot of characters back then.
But like now, those guys wouldn't stand a chance to get on a Potluck, because there's too much, like, not even young in age, but like there's just too much undiscovered talent that's like, wow, this person's good. Who are they? Well,
the crowds are better too. I mean, you have better crowds and you have better comedians. So I think everybody would understand that, okay, if you want that, the stuff that was cool back in the day, not cool, but that, again, the charm, they still have that. You still have it up in the belly room. Don does his stuff with the Ding Dong Show, Don Barris. I just think that particular Potluck show, just because comedy's popular and you got to bring it in there, it's a real opportunity. Not that it wasn't before, but now it's a solid room. You want to bring it, but
yeah, back then I don't think there was a lot of industry going to the Comedy Store. I think it was going more toward the Laugh Factory and the Improv and the various Jay Davis rooms, Dublin's.
Well, Largo was popular, still is. Dublin's, Laugh Factory, yeah, Improv. I got passed there at the Comedy Store, I'm going to say around 2000.
So you got passed by Mitzi?
I got passed by Mitzi. So back in 2000, I got recommended by Bobby Lee. I was Adam Grotman, who was his neighbor, was a comedian, and Adam Grotman ran Cafe 101. They had a show on, it was midweek, so I think it was like Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. But he would book Sklar Brothers, Zach, Patton, and cool. He had good taste in comedy, but he also had like regular Howard Kramer, and not that he just had a good mix of comedians. So I think Adam saw me perform, and then he said he recommended me to Bobby Lee, and then Bobby Lee saw me somewhere, I think at some bar or what have you, maybe Dublin's, who knows. And then I got recommended me to Mitzi, and I got passed pretty much right away. She never said no. I just got a yes. So,
but does she say that to you directly, or like the next day someone calls you? Like,
yeah, she didn't tell me you're passed. It was just the next day calling for Vales, and I wouldn't always get spots. And when I did, they were like the 12:30, 1 a.m. spots kind of thing. And I would go do the youth hostel on Sunday nights and Wednesday nights, and then I come by the Comedy Store. So, but I would. I never really hung out there until I was passed. I just felt I definitely wouldn't park there. Like that was something I wouldn't do. Even today, these days, if I don't have a spot, I won't park. And I think that's the rule anyway.
I mean, they're pretty, I think it depends on if you're liked up there. Like you and I think are liked, and they would let us park there.
I mean, they let me, but say on a Tuesday night when it's crazy packed and I don't have a spot, I probably wouldn't park there unless I'm judging on Roast Battle. That's the only way I would do it. I wouldn't put myself in that situation. I'll park at down the street. Now, they would let me probably if I pushed it, and the lot guys do feel bad. They're not like, they don't, I get treated well there. I'll be honest. At the Comedy Store, the door guys treat me well. The comedians treat me well, the staff. And I think part of that has to do with, I'm older, maybe. I've been there for such a long time.
It's respect.
I guess. I think people just respect their elders, hopefully, naturally. And then on top of that, I get my spot somehow. I do a decent job, I think. And it feels good. I will say that it does feel good being a respected comedian respected by the comedians. There's something to say about that. So, because I remember what it was like when nobody knew me. And, back to the Comedy Store, I never saw it as like I was never a prime time guy anyway. I was always an after the hump guy. I still am in that OR for the most part. I'm an after the hump guy. So I never really, I was, you're still after the hump. These days, it's not the great, it's like still people leave at midnight, So I feel that for some reason, I always thought the club this is what I'm used to. I don't know. Maybe I was there the whole time, putting positive energy, maybe that late night crazy stuff we were doing, those early on roast battles, just the zaniness, and maybe keeping that, I don't know. Well, I don't know what it was, keeping it going during the down times, but I don't even know what the down times were, to be honest with you.
I mean, to me, and it was just based on my experience. I
see your leg moving. I'm trying not to be distracted. I'm trying to
You're good, baby. And to me, the downtimes were the Tommy era, and because he was, his way of dealing with the comics, I think, was antagonistic, which I think was unnecessary. So there was this negativity floating around up there that isn't up there today, because I think Adam is very straightforward and honest with people. So I don't know what he tells people, but if you're not to his liking, he'll tell you, hey, come up here, I'll try and work you in, but it's not going to happen for a while.
Because
no
room, or you're not good enough yet, or you're not my cup of tea, or we've got too many of your kind of comedian, maybe, who knows?
Whereas Tommy would encourage you to hang out and loiter around, and he had no intentions of putting you up, that's, I think, fostered a culture of negativity and frustration that's not up there now. Comics come up there to hang out now, just to be around the scene, and they know they're not going to get up, or it's very unlikely, and they still like the energy there. I mean, the energy at the store is great. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Because certain comedians who had, have been not forced out, but good at kind of like the good vibes won over, and having the audiences, also the staff, the management. I can go into all that stuff behind the scenes. Now with Tommy, the old booker, he would give me like 2 spots a week. I'd get 1 to 2 spots. He'd usually either give me like a weekday workout spot, then he'd give me like a weekend spot, or he'd give me 2 weekend spots. He'd always give me like 2 spots. And he said, Brody, when you're in town, I will always, you always have a spot. So he was always, he was straightforward, honest with me, but I didn't push it. I was never in those prime time spots. I never had a main room spot, but I just liked performing at the Comedy Store. But I was also working. I was doing a lot of audience warm up. So I was working quite a bit. So anything I got at the Comedy Store was like icing on the cake, so to speak, or I didn't need, doing the audience warm up, putting that energy out, I had to watch it at night. So for me to be bouncing around all these different clubs after doing audience warm up during the day was a little too much. So I devoted a lot of my time to the Comedy Store during those, if people want to call them, down years. I just devoted my time, and a lot of that was, doing late night stuff, crazy stuff with Barris. And then you'd see these, these podcasts start happening there. Then they started having these roast battles, and these roast battles and open mics got together. So I'm not saying that I was directly involved there, but I feel like maybe the foundation of those late night spots, the Don, yourself, the band, having fun, knowing that at the end of the night there was something going on. There was always that late night energy, keeping the light on, so to speak. And then I think also when Adam came in, the new booker, and he brought his. But I also feel like Adam switched up the lineup, so some brought some bigger names in and brought some people in that didn't go through the development process, like brought them in right. I mean, got some good guys in,
like Segura.
Yeah, like Tom Segura or Jeselnik or Eddie Pepitone or David Spade. Now, he was good at bringing some of these guys in, give the place a boost. Rogan coming back didn't hurt. And then I also just think like the podcast, those shows like the Kill Tony, you've got the Roast Battle, you have some of these other third-party shows up there that are, making it better. And then it's also at the Comedy Store, you got Uber now, people have to worry about drinking and driving, so it's like, I'm saying like people will go, oh, Tommy left and everything changed. I think that it's a combination, and then also the management, kind of they treated it like not a restaurant, but you brought in Eric, who's the manager, and runs a tight ship, and you have Curtis with the security and the wait staff. And I see them working. These girls and the guys, they really work hard. And if you see them, the morale is good. It seems to be that way. And then the management, it's a good place to be, and I think it's going pretty strong right now. But there was times when people thought, "Oh, this Comedy Store is gonna. Who knows if it's gonna stick around?" And
yeah, I mean, I would say maybe 2006 to 2011ish. It was like, wow, this is.
You don't know.
There's 30 people in the OR on a Saturday night, and it's Sebastian. It was like great lineups,
right?
But I just think that Tommy's way of dealing with people was he rubbed so many people the wrong way that the change needed to be made. And Roast Battle, I think, was I think Don and you carried the lean years, because people would. I remember when I left the store because I wasn't ready to be around that dark energy in the early 2000s, and I just performed elsewhere for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And when I came back, I started coming back to watch you and Don.
Right.
And that's really what got me. I think around 2009, I started heckling good-naturedly, of course, you and Don doing the band, and integrated myself into the club that way. But people would come not for the comedy, but late night to watch you and Don, because you guys have this great chemistry.
Yeah, it still is a comedy gym. You can always go there, and Don will always want to play. And we were doing this band. Was that like 5 years ago, maybe at its peak?
Yeah, I mean, by the way, audience warm-up extraordinaire Gary Cannon is saying hello to you, Brody.
Gary's a good guy. Yes, the dojo, all things comedy. Yeah, it was just a place to you could always play. You're doing the band, rocking out, having fun
till 2, 3, 4 in the morning at times. I don't think people remember.
Yeah, like 2 or 3 in the morning. I can remember like it was a real event. It was fun. So those were great moments, and Tommy allowed that, or the management, whoever allowed that to happen. And that was really fun, that, getting to improv like that. And you could still find those times, those opportunities. Now, for me, getting back to Tommy, I never had a main room spot. Now,
did you ask him for one? Like, hey man, when can I work myself in the main room?
Never asked. I still don't ask for things. So the main room would happen like once or twice a week, maybe. They would have a show in there. But I never had a spot. And I didn't ever ask, because I'd get my 1 to 2 spots in the original room after the hump, late at night, usually around Don, like messing around with Don. But I took what I could get. And then I was doing audience warm-up during the day. Then I'd come at night, Don's doing audience warm-up, and we're doing this energy, and I'm bringing my tambourine, and I'm bringing up music. And it was just, it was almost hard to transfer into being a stand-up comedian when you're doing so much audience warm-up 3 or 4 times a week. It's like on you. So to come to the comedy club, you're still kind of got that audience warm-up vibe. And you see that, oh, this audience warm-up vibe, it is kind of funny. So then I would take some of those elements into my stand-up. And I'm not going to say that stunted my growth, but it almost kept me, the drumming stuff, the tambourine, it was fun for me. It was fun, and it was funny that I would have a tambourine. Now, did it derail my regular stand-up? I don't know, but that's where I was. But I was doing so much warm-up. And I would say, like, in terms of warm-up, I made the choice probably 3 or 4 years ago to get out of warm-up and say, I'm a stand-up comedian. I'm a stand-up comedian. I'll even put the microphone, on the icon when I'm promoting it, because I just want to get that. I want to get that. I'll do warm up, but I want to say I'm a stand up, because warm up, you're there to warm them up. They're not there expecting you to see stand up. It's a bonus if you give them some jokes. So then when you go do the comedy club, it's like you got to bring jokes. So it's like when you're doing audience warm up, it's not necessarily jokes. It's just a different skill. But the bottom line is, the Comedy Store, I never got a main room spot, never asked. And then Tommy, I got booked to do La Jolla down
to headline.
I think it was to headline. Yeah, to headline. And I had to, do, a longer set. So Tommy said to me, again, this is like 2010 or what have you, around that time, maybe 2009. He said, "Why don't you go up at the end of the main room and do some extra time to get ready for La Jolla?" So I said, okay. So I did it 1 week, and then he gave it to me the next week. And then I went down to La Jolla and I did the show. I did like 30 or 45 minutes at the Comedy Store here in Hollywood. Then I went down there, and then the shows are good, And then when I came back, he just kept giving me that main room spot. So it's like, oh, I got the main room spot the next week, even though I'm not going to La Jolla. There's nothing like to train for necessarily. So Tommy gave me that spot, and then it just ended up Tommy giving me that late spot in the main room where I could do anywhere from 30 to 45 to an hour. I get to do up to an hour in that main room. I still do today.
That's the Kinison spot, right?
That's the Kinison spot, they call it.
And why is that? Just educate the younger fans who might not know what that means.
Well, Sam Kinison, the great comedian, the late great Sam Kinison, he would go on really late. He would go on like after midnight and just go on. It was the last spot, and they just let him go. But Sam Kinison would pack it in. He was so rock and roll. He was huge on the Sunset Strip. He would pack it in. But there was also nights, same thing with Dice, that you would go on and there'd only be like 2 people in there. So that room, you could be magical, but it could also be still magical with only 2 or 3 people. So, but the Kinison spot was, a lot of those times, maybe early on, there weren't that many people in there. And then it got big. So he did that spot for it's just called the Kinison spot. So it is, they kind of like give you the keys, kind of do what you want. And it's the crowd at that point, they've seen, everyone's a headliner. They've seen 3 hours of comedy, and they've heard all the jokes. They've seen all the shtick, and you get up there and you kind of, they've seen it all. So you give them a joke, it's like they may not respond. So and when the crowd is busted out like that, when it's a busted down crowd, they like crowd work. I feel they like, let's acknowledge what's happening here,
because they've heard every Trump joke, they've heard every Me Too joke, they've been asked probably by 3 or 4 comics, where are you from? I mean, like, they want something different.
Yeah, and I treat it like it's like an important set to me, which it is. But I'll ask, we have birthdays here. My comedy, a lot of it is based off my instinct. Do I think it's funny? And then have crowds laughed, have people told me that's funny. That's It's called stage time. It's called listening to your sets. It's called remembering what works. So I know that I'll get up there and I'll ask about birthdays. Anybody have a birthday? And it's funny that I'm going on at 1 a.m., 3 hours into a show, and I'm asking about birthdays. And you know what? 99% of the time, there's a couple birthdays and nobody has asked whose birthday it is. So then I go, see, I'm a good guy. I'm asking for birthdays. And then I'll acknowledge the sound booth. So I do little things like that I know the other comedians, I mean, why would they do that? Because the crowds are so packed and rocking when they're on. So,
and you also do the high school thing, which nobody asks.
I do the high school thing because audience warm up, I would get every high school in pretty much when I worked at Fox Sports. All the LA City, CIF schools, community colleges, military branches, rehab groups, paid audience, all of that sort of thing. So I pretty much got not every, but tons of Southern California high schools. So I just got to know them. And I also grew up out here. I played baseball at Reseda High School. So when we played high school baseball, we constantly talked about the other high schools. So I just knew, like growing up back in the 80s, going to Reseda, I knew who our rivals were. I knew, who were the good sports programs. So again, like I started asking about like where you're from or what high school, and people started laughing, so I keep doing it. And same thing with audience warm up, you're asking, again, a lot of it comes from that. I learned so much about energy and the powers of it with audience warm up. And when I was at Best Damn Sports Show, I was able to see about, posture, volume, caring, being connected, because those things mattered on the show. When they weren't connected, lights would go off, teleprompter would break, they flub line. So it was very locked into that show. And when I wasn't locked in, it would fumble. Same thing at Chelsea lately. So it's an energy. It's like I go on stage and I almost demand it. I go in and I visualize it. I believe it. And that also comes from Arizona State. Played baseball at Arizona State. I learned all about mental skills, positive visualization, breathing, affirmations. And I saw the results playing baseball at Arizona State, the number one baseball program in the country. And when they recruited me, or they gave me the opportunity to be on the team, very small scholarship, and I went out there, I jumped at it. I knew I had to get out of the Valley. I grew up in the Valley, but I wanted to get away from, I just want, just like any college kid.
You could have gone to USC with their baseball program, Rod Dato.
Yeah, or maybe
UCLA.
Cal State Northridge. Probably should have gone to Pierce College, but I wanted to get away. And when I went to Arizona, I went to spring training like in 1985 or 86, and it was like, wow, all these baseball teams out here. It's pretty cool. You get up close to them. And then when Arizona State was a popular college baseball, they still are. They're not in the College World Series this year. But when I had a chance to go on that recruiting trip and I saw the campus and the stadium, was like, wow, this is kind of what I like. And then it was, you're telling me, all these baseball teams are having spring training, and I knew I could go see them because I'd been to spring training there. So it was just an opportunity for me that I wanted to do. And I also knew that I'd be getting top-notch coaching, top-notch. Basically, I wanted to be around the major leaguers. And with all this spring training, I was right there in the middle of it. So I learned about the positive energy, and I applied it to playing baseball. I had, they tried to... You're talking like you didn't know me right at first. Oh, he's a dick or what have you. At Arizona State, they didn't like me at first. The coaches, they were confused. I asked questions. I was goofy, gangly, Jewish, whatever you want to call it. They didn't get it necessarily. I went from being a popular kid on my high school baseball team, and then I go to Arizona State, and I'm a weirdo, the weird guy. I'm not. You guys don't understand me. I'm not going to quit. And I would see years later, they'd always try to weed people out. The one person you would think wouldn't be cut from the team would be cut. You just don't know. But I kept fighting back and believing. And I can go into stories like my freshman year when I was basically, I didn't even play JV ball my freshman year. It's freshman JV fall ball, nothing. And the team went to China. I didn't go, or Taiwan. And then they said, well, we're going to come back in January. It's my freshman year. If you want to practice, you can. And I said, yeah. And I beat the bus back and I practiced with the team. And then I didn't have a uniform the first game. And then they gave me a uniform. And then I got to suit up. And then we played UCLA and I didn't have a uniform because you can only suit up certain guys for varsity league home games. And then they went on the road. I didn't get to go on the road. Then I earned it. What I'm getting at is my freshman year, I had so many ups and downs, I was tested, and it made me stronger. And I saw the results of visualizing and believing. And I couldn't meditate. I still don't, but I did that. And the team kept me around. And we won, and I went to Alaska, and I played baseball there, and I came back for my sophomore year, and that's when I said I wanted to push a little more and be tougher. So, and then I can continue going on with that, but the baseball taught me a lot of the winning attitude and having confidence. And then growing up in the Valley, being around that attitude in the 80s with parents who were, they talk about it now, how it's kind of understood. You're from the 80s, you were tougher. You didn't wear seatbelts. Your dad smoked. You ate bad food. You jaywalked. You listened to loud music, all that crazy stuff. It's like, yeah, we did. And looking back on it, it kind of makes you a stronger person today. You're not as outraged over things. You're not as sensitive. So that applied with the real scientific psychology of coaching, which I learned at Arizona State. And then I studied interpersonal communication. I wanted to learn to communicate better. And I think I did. And then when I was done playing baseball, I didn't want to get into coaching, but they kept me around as a coach. And
when did you know you were done with, when did you give up the dream of
baseball?
Pro baseball, wanting to pitch for the Dodgers?
1993, when I was done playing, I had surgery on my elbow. I hurt my elbow in 1991, my junior year, and I had surgery. And I had earned a scholarship at that point. I was going to get a chance to play. I played my sophomore year. I started 4 games and pitched 28 innings or what have you. And then my junior year, I got a scholarship, bigger scholarship, and was going to get a chance to play, whether I was bad or not. And I hurt my elbow. So that caused problems. I couldn't play. I had to get a cortisone shot. And then, I wasn't even that great or, barely on the team kind of anyway, even though they gave me a scholarship paid for my school. So I got the surgery and then I tried to come back but they kept me around. Coach Brock's, when I was done playing, there was just my arm was still bugging me. He says, you know what? Because they said, if you want to come back and play, we'll pay for your surgery, but we're not going to pay for your school. If you want to quit baseball because you got hurt, we'll pay for the rest of your school, but you're done. You can't play. Your scholarship, we'll pay for your school, but you can't be on the team.
So you have one or the other.
Right. And I said, you know what? I don't want to quit. I'm going to get surgery. They paid for the surgery. So then I tried to come back and it was just not happening. And then Coach Brock said, why don't you, I'll pay for your school and we'll find a position for you. So he kept me around. I was done playing and then he paid for my school my last year. And then I would just help him out. I'd sit up in the press box and then he had me coach first base. That was his thing. He said he wanted to be in the dugout. So I had eligibility to where I could travel still, but the home graduate assistant couldn't travel. So he coached, the home guy coached at home first base, and then I coached on the road. So I coached first base against Stanford, Arizona, USC, and it's basically just kind of giving guys at first base a pep talk. And then we made it to the College World Series. This is 93. I'm thinking there's no way, because now we could bring the full allotment of coaches.
Right.
So I'm going, they don't need to bring me. I'm not going to go, I guess. And then they announced it and they took me. So I got to go to College World Series, and I basically had no responsibilities other than make sure everyone's here on the bus. But so Arizona State taught me a lot about team building, confidence, professionalism, all of that. And I knew that going in. So I took an acting class when I was done playing that last year. I did take an acting class, and I never thought about doing stand-up. My friends say, "Oh, Brody, you said you were going to do stand-up or comedy," and it's like I don't really remember that. But I took this acting class. I go, I have some extra credits. Why don't I see what this class is all about? So the class was like at 2:00, which was like I was usually at the baseball field. My body was so used to being around the baseball team at that time. But now I was in the acting class, and there was girls in there. They were cute, and everyone was like supportive. And you wrote a little monologue, and I tried to be serious, and then they would just start laughing at me. So I would try to do a serious scene like a PSA about something or what have you, and they would just end up laughing at me. And I remember a couple times I was in some classes and I was just started laughing, getting the giggles, because I was trying to be a serious actor, which I'm not a serious actor. And I remember one of the football guys, because we would all study together, all the athletes, and I'd make the girls laugh, like the basketball players. I can tell you got to yawn. You can yawn, Earl. It's okay.
No.
But I can tell.
I'm listening, though.
I know. I'm not saying you're bored. I'm saying just.
Oh, no, not at all. I have so many questions for you.
I know I'm babbling a little bit.
But you're the perfect podcast guest. No one wants to hear me talk.
Oh, really? Okay. Then I'll keep going.
Yeah. I mean, they all know my story. They want, okay.
Well, I'm just letting you, I'm going on the baseball stuff because you probably have a lot of athletes that listen to this show. I would think maybe, not that it's a sports podcast, but also where I just learned about positive. I was always a nice guy growing up in the Valley. I was nice, and I got picked on for being nice. That was the thing. It was like people were almost shocked that I was a nice guy. And I remember I got kind of, I don't want to say bullied, but some of that. So I was like, my niceness wasn't, because you see guys now that are super nice. You get older and you go, this guy can't be that nice, or people aren't nice.
Like Steve Simone.
Steve Simone, if you want to talk about that, or just nice, nice fans. People good job, real. I was there are nice people. You know what I mean? And it's I grew up here in the San Fernando Valley, and I'm not saying they're very nice. Possibly it was more, it was tough, kind of. Wasn't, because the Valley, I'm not going to say it's super supportive because it has nothing. It's not the arts. It was more like blue collar. So I feel like I was raised almost on a prison yard, and I'm Jewish. I was born Jewish, wasn't bar mitzvah, wasn't religious. And I can kind of see that why kids go to private schools, because it protects them from the public school kids, if you want to look at it that way. I got picked on by, I'm going to say, non-Jewish kids because I was goofy. Goofy Jewish kids aren't going to pick on other goofy Jewish kids about the same similar goofy things necessarily, But if you're getting picked on by, a jock or, a BMX biker guy, I'm not, I think I'm just like any other, I'm just like a talkative Jewish guy, or not talkative, but I wasn't I was blue collar. If I went to Hebrew school, I might've been protected by some of these, at the public school also. So I would, get into fights, or I would have, get teased. Whereas but I also went to a private school, and I didn't fit in with those kids either.
They can be. I went to Notre Dame High.
I'm not saying private school kids are perfect. Believe me.
I got bullied at Notre Dame High.
Oh, really? For being.
Just for being a rich, whatever you consider rich, but a wealthy kid from the West Side going to the 818.
But that's not. Did that hurt your confidence with girls?
Yes and no. At Notre Dame, it did, but I was dating a girl who went to Westlake, not Harvard Westlake, but Westlake in Beverly Glen area. She would have been the hottest girl at Notre Dame. So I knew I could deliver the goods in terms of dating a hot
this
chick.
affected my self-esteem in that sense. You know, it's like when you're, it's people like to pick. When they pick on you, you could also say they like you. That's a form of, hey, we like you. There's so many ways to look at it. You could tell when somebody's malicious, or you can tell when somebody's just kidding, or you can tell when somebody's skilled at it or unskilled. There's just a lot of different ways to look at it. But I do feel that my upbringing, thank God I do comedy. Thank God I've been able to, they say comedians are messed up, and I'm not saying I'm that messed up. I'm just going back as I'm thinking, I'm relaxed. I was talking a lot. I'm going to pull back.
Well, you say you were messed up. Let's get into your HBO show.
Okay. Well, I was only messed up in a sense that, my parents are divorced. I went to public school. I lived in an apartment. You know what I'm saying? I said I was a nice guy. So when you're a nice guy, you can be a target for bullies. That's what I was getting at. And not having a brother, and I think not blaming it on that. I'm not blaming anybody for anything that happened to me or the situation I was in. But I'm just saying I can see how and why, and I understand why certain social rituals are necessary. Certain moments in your life that prepare you for dealing with adversity. Dating is, my mom probably thinks I'm gay. Who knows? I ain't never seen Steven with the girl.
10%, right?
10% gay. So I joked about it, but it's not that I'm gay. It's like I didn't have confidence. And when you're young and you get picked on, oh, look at him, he's goofy or this, it didn't feel good. Do you see what I'm saying? So on top, I think it was just a perfect storm of sensitivity. And then, people, I'll pivot into, other things, and that's not a bad thing. People go, oh, you're a comedian. Why so sensitive? That's what makes you a comedian. You're sensitive. You're sensitive to your surroundings. You're sensitive to things, and you pick up on it. So I kind of like when people go, oh, you're sensitive. There's nothing, I think that's a good thing.
It shows you have a heart and a soul.
Right. Again, I think that I'm not that different than many other people. I think the situations I was in based on my family, my upbringing, and that sort of thing kind of made me who I am. And that you could say those are good decisions. Those are bad decisions. Oh, he's a legend. He's a this or that. Well, do I own property? Do I have a girlfriend? Do I have a child? Do I have a wife? Do I have a Prius? I don't. I don't have those things.
You have a dog?
I have a dog. So I'm not going to be a downer, but it's all about, it's choices. And again, there's no blame. No blame. It's choices. Now, pivoting into, you asked me about comedy, the HBO special.
Let me ask you one last question.
Yeah, and I'm probably babbling here.
I love it though. People want it. I find that my fan base, and maybe I'm wrong, they want to hit play on this and just zone out into two people talking.
Well, it's one guy talking a lot, which was me.
But that's what makes it, people don't want to hear my voice that much. They want to hear about you.
Okay. I just don't want to beat her. I don't want to, I can go off and do it like a tangent.
But that's what I want.
Oh, really?
As a host, I want to just open up the door.
The Pandora's box, if you will.
Now, did being a nice guy hurt you in baseball from the standpoint of, I play hockey. You and I are very similar to me.
Right.
And there were times when me being one of the bigger players on my team, someone else on the other team's acting up, a coach would say, hey, Skakel, you got to go address that situation.
Yeah, that's what I would do.
You were a pitcher, though. I know the unwritten code of baseball, which I love. If you do a dirty slide into our second baseman, next time you're up at the plate, you might get a ball behind your back. did that your niceness ever cause you problems in that area where the coach would either directly or indirectly say, "Hey, that's the guy who did the dirty slide. Take care of that, Stevens."
It's like, what am I playing hockey here? Or am I a goon?
I mean, you're the pitcher.
That only happened one time when they had me throw at somebody. We were playing a team, Rice University, because one of our guys got hit. But
did you struggle with the coach?
No, because that never happened. I just pitched. I didn't get involved in that stuff. Meaning, like,
but you had to though. Like,
well, we didn't get in too many fights all the time. I mean, I was a team leader in a sense that people liked me and I pitched well. But I wasn't like knocking guys down all over the place and like leading the charge, like, let's fight these guys. I wasn't like that, and and I also didn't get that. That wasn't my responsibility. So if you're asking, like, did the coach come to me and say, "Hey, Brody, you need to knock this guy down"? No, that never happened. But,
okay.
It's not like it's high school baseball, college baseball. They had, like I said, they did ask me to throw at somebody.
And since you're a nice guy and it's against your
no, and being nice. I mean, I'm competitive. I mean, I'm a nice guy in a sense. I'm not like evil, but I wanted to win. I struck out a lot of guys. If you look at nice guys don't strike out people. I struck out. I think I have 35 strikeouts in 28 innings at ASU. So,
you ever strike out anyone famous? Ron Gant or anyone like that?
Few guys. I can't remember. Nobody famous, really. Right. I mean, that's a great question, and I feel like I'm stumped. But I did strike out a couple of guys who went on to play in the major leagues.
Yeah, that's famous to me.
Oh, okay. But no, like, big stars. I had big stars. I mean, I faced guys like in Winter League, and I'm sure I faced guys in Summer League that I didn't know who they were, and maybe they went on to do stuff. I did pitch at Arizona State. A lot of JV, traveled with varsity. Reseda, I played spring ball, summer ball. So I guess I mean, if I had to think about it, I'm sure there were guys I played against, but I wasn't like a stud. I was good. I was like probably like a number 4 starter. If you're thinking the major leagues, I was like a 4 or 5 starter. You give me the ball, you're going to get 5 or 6 innings out of me. You're going to get some good energy. You're going to get a guy who knows how to pitch. I could read instincts. So, and also, baseball, you can get mad up there. I could pitch angry.
Like, what would get you mad on the mound?
Just like a guy digging in on me, some guy, like a cocky guy at, coming up to bat, like, F you. I'm going to strike you out. I struck out a lot of guys. I threw the ball well. So I would like that I was into that, whereas like doing stand up, I can't be angry up there. I got to be kind of don't go in that red zone.
Well, what would make this is a good place to stop the Facebook Live feed. I'm going to ask you a question.
Do they like it so far? The Facebook
they
Live?
love it.
What have they said?
Tell Brody I said hello.
Is that Gary Cannon again?
No, Gary said this is great. Positive energy. Enjoy it. From Eric Hollerback.
So they're saying this is like Earl, another good podcast. Keep doing what you're doing. We're off to a good start.
Yeah, it's 2 friends. But the goal of this podcast is to just be like 2 friends talking at a bar minus the noise.
Well, I'm doing more I'm trying to get stuff out. I'll be honest with you. I'm trying to like cram everything in, my whole life story on this podcast.
But there's no Brody is a nice guy. Here's Gary Cannon again. I know Brody for a long time, and this is awesome.
Well, again, you're going like when you go, oh, you were a dick right at first. It was like, I'm not a dick.
That was my impression of
I know. And I have to go through that like, who is this guy? He's either a jerk, he's a weirdo, he's a creep, he's an a-hole, he's shy. I've heard so many, different descriptions of me. And it depends on the situation that I'm in. And I also feel that that's a hard thing, like playing baseball or doing audience warm up. And then, I would say the Comedy Store. You get in the Comedy Store, I'll get all like butt heads with guys there. It's kind of, it's almost like an alpha male jock culture. And I say, I played Division I baseball. I've been around athletes. I don't need to do these athlete type energies, like, not hazing, but if you want to get into that, sometimes the Comedy Store would have that, and I would go, I played sports. I don't need that. It's like, so sometimes, I'll, that can be aggravating at times.
Well, I think the Comedy Store, it's a great analogy of it is a sports team from the standpoint of you've got your alpha males, you've got your people who are just happy to be on the team.
Right.
You've got people who are pushovers.
But here's the thing. I judge people on how they throw a baseball and catch a baseball. That's what I do.
How do you judge them at the Comedy Store?
No, but if somebody's going to be like, be a big talker, and then you see him throw a baseball and you go, oh, not too impressive. I'm all into, like, I think throwing a baseball is, I've just, at time, I am a pitcher. When I go to the Comedy Store, in my heart, I'm a baseball player. If you ask me, Brody, would you rather be a famous baseball player or a famous comedian? I wanted to play baseball. I like striking guys out. Maybe I don't have that in me as much as I used to. I'm 48. My career would probably be over for baseball, but I had that fire in me. I never dreamed of doing the Tonight Show. I dreamed of being a pitcher, and I was up, and I got it out of my system, but that was a part of me at times. But sometimes at the Comedy Store, like, yeah, you'll get these guys, and I'm thinking, let me see you throw a baseball. You talk a lot. Let me see you throw a ball. And then you see him like, oh, you throw like a girl. Huh. Or you'll see guys who are like active on Twitter. You see these guys, very political, loudmouths, bullies, if you will. And then you go do a little research and you go, oh, this guy's a little famous. I bet you he's throwing a first pitch out at a baseball game. Let me type it in. Ding, ding. Then you see him throw and you go, that's embarrassing. You have motor skill issues and you're telling me what to do? You're telling me how to act and behave? That's a story for another time. But so, yeah, I do have, I am, you could push my buttons. I'm not saying I have rabbit ears. I'm not saying.
But you hear it all.
I hear it all. I can hear it. I can hear it all. Yeah. Because I'm sensitive. So people like to push my buttons. They like to get a rise, get a reaction out of me. But there's a way to do it. There's different levels. Certain comedians, it's just different levels. I would like Jeff Ross picking on me was kind of like, that's acceptable. And I could pick at Jeff Ross too. But like me,
you guys are friends.
Yeah. Did you fart, Earl?
That's the lowest. The dog.
Okay. No, we're friends, but I'm saying like there's levels, like an open micer making fun of me or somebody I don't know making fun of me. But if like Gilbert Godfrey made fun of me, that would be an honor. Or I know I always respected my elders. As a freshman, I always respected the seniors. And maybe that I just would do that. I'm not in disrespecting my people who have been there, but
well, I think it depends. Like Ralphie May told me once, Earl, when I die, don't cry, make fun of me. So I don't think he minds it when I roast him a little bit.
Yeah.
If you did it, if Jeff Ross did it, if Gary Cannon did it, but not some open mic or comic who never met him.
Right. Well, that's what happens.
Right.
That can happen. when you're hanging out at the Comedy Store, or you put yourself in those situations.
I think it's the roast battle culture from the standpoint that that's such a popular show, and I think people see it was really coincided with the revitalization of the Comedy Store. Oh, that's my way in here. Hey, there's Earl or Brody or Don or whoever. I don't really know them that well, but I'm going to make fun of them right now to be accepted. It's like, no, you got to know me to make fun of me.
Right. I mean, that's the thing with Twitter also. You get these people on Twitter who will say stuff, or, like, oh, Brody, why do you act that way on a podcast? Or what'd you do there? Or, Brody, you're a baby. And nobody, it's like, they only hear the podcast. They only see a video. They're not there when the cameras are off, and they don't know the history of two people, how, they've been friends for a while, or they're not even at the Comedy Store, and they go on Twitter and they say stuff. So yeah, again, it's just more social media, and you can get burnt on it for sending out a weird tweet. I've gotten in trouble with that kind of thing, and it's unfortunate. I feel like my reputation one-on-one is good for the most part, even though I butted heads over time. But yeah, that's the thing. People don't. But
you have a lot to lose. We all saw what happened with Roseanne. I mean, literally, one tweet ruined her life. You're on TV shows, you're in huge movies, your audience warm up to shows that are on major networks that are owned by major companies. You send out one wacky tweet and say you're asked to do audience warm up on an NBC show, and Viacom or whoever owns NBC is like, yeah, let's get that guy out.
Yeah, I mean, even with Major League Baseball, if I wanted to do something with them, let's research this guy's tweets, or maybe I did something on somebody's podcast. Who knows? But you know what? I think when you're a comedian, they do give you a little leeway on some things. I'm not saying they allow racism. That's not something, or they're,
Well, I mean, the Roseanne tweet was Jesus Christ, you can't even
But why? Yeah, why even? Yeah, she was pushing it.
I mean, that's there's crossing the line, and then there's obliterating the line.
But I'm not defending her tweets. I'm not defending the tweets. Did she cross the line? She crossed the line with the tweet. Yes, but if you want to, I'm all into I've heard worse going the other way. I've heard a lot of. I'm saying what happened with Roseanne was definitely inflamed. Was definitely a very charged atmosphere with her.
Well, it's the same thing with it's not having to do with a tweet necessarily, but a blog, or the Chris Hardwick situation where literally one, I think it was a blog that his ex-girlfriend, he's within 24 hours, everything this guy's ever done, it's being taken off the internet on Nerdist and all reference.
And it wasn't even, she'd even say that he physically did anything. It was mental abuse, and it was
but he didn't even get to tell his side yet, and it's too bad.
Yeah, it's threat of black. Well, okay, so he didn't get to tell his side. He's done. So you look at it. Do you blame AMC for doing that? Do you blame him? I think AMC probably didn't do it. Probably said, well, we're going to cut ties because we don't want to deal with the hassle. I don't know if it's we disagree with what you're saying. They probably said, we just don't want to deal with this mob culture. It's possible. I worked with Chris Hardwick. I did the audience warm up at midnight, and Chloe, his girlfriend, she was at the show. I never sensed anything. It's nothing. Well, I don't know what was there to sense. That's who Chris, I mean, the guy, if you look at the story, he's basically just laid down parameters for the relationship. It's this is who I am. I'd have to read it again, but this is who I am. It's take it or leave it. I'm a 40-year-old guy host. You're younger, and I'm set in my ways, and this is how I am. So she was probably hurt by it, and maybe it's maniacal behavior, but that's probably what it takes to be driven like that. So I'm not defending anything.
Oh, I'm not asking you to.
No, because somebody will go on the podcast and probably say, oh, Brody said this. This outrage culture, it is out of control. It's every tweet I think about, it's no fun. It's no fun because you feel like you're going to get jumped down even if you do a joke about something. And then it's no fun to go on there and just see the hate spewed by comedians you like. You like their comedy and you like them as people. And then you see them on there being, the typical Trump derangement syndrome. No matter who you are, who you're voting for, that's just a fact of what they're calling it. And that doesn't feel good. I don't like to see people angry. I like to see happiness. Like when you had, it was kind of cool seeing what we can do with this Kim Jong-il guy. Yes, right. He's a dictator. Yes, he killed people. But you know what? If you look at it on a whole, maybe we get rid of the nuclear weapons. And you know what? It's entertainment. I look at it that way. I'm into morale. I'm into energies. I feel pretty good. But this outrage culture, it's a downer. And I'm not saying anything. I mean, I never tell people I'm not trying to change people's lives. I'm trying to maybe change the minds. I'm not trying to change the minds. I'm trying to, when I tweet out something, because I have certain comedians following me, I feel like if I can maybe just let them know that I know what the real deal is. Because I grew up in the Valley. Like people would always put down the Valley. The Valley's bad. The Valley's this. You're from the Valley. But all the TV shows, their production offices are based in the Valley. Disney is in the Valley. Many of the TV shows are shot in the Valley. And why? Because the Valley has good vibes. And they would constantly put it down. And when I started, and I worked on these TV shows, bringing Valley energy, blue collar, what I learned to these TV shows. And when I started hearing this negativity coming from people putting down blue collar types like myself, it didn't make sense to me. That's why I'm not saying I got political, but that's where I started tweeting a little more, only in a sense, they're lying. I'm not saying they're lying, but I've done so many audience warm-ups where I'm on the floor bringing positive energy to these shows. And my energy is what they completely dislike. And if you look at it now, where are the daily comedy shows with the three panelists, the stand-ups? They're not around. First of all, people don't want to see comedians. They don't want to see a real comedian doing a panel like on Chelsea Lately or even at midnight, because it's known that comedians are negative these days. But I would push positivity, energy, fun. And then when they started saying these things, and I started seeing these political tweets from these people, it's like, you don't think the way I think, and I'm helping you. You're saying bad things, but the bad things you're saying about people like me or where I'm from, I'm using it in The Hangover. I'm using it at the hip clubs. I'm using it at the alternative rooms. I'm using it at the Comedy Store. I'm using it around baseball. And you're telling me it's wrong. That's where opened my eyes up. And I kind of started just believing and putting out that positive energy. And I know it's that's what they say Trump talks about, but I did this back in college. Why should I change? And I let people know that you like Chelsea Lately? Did you like the At Midnight? Who was bringing it? Me. Pushing it. And then it became harder to push the audiences. Oh, you can't yell at the audiences. Oh, this executive thinks you're scaring them. And then it just became harder and harder to care about a show. I could see it the last couple of years, these audiences becoming more defiant, bad posture, talking back, being more of a pain in the ass, because every year in school, it became, less. Every year these kids are getting less and less educated. And you would see it because the paid audience, it's the bottom of the barrel. So you're seeing the bottom of the barrel. And every year, they become a little more defiant, eating in the show, just more of a pain in the ass. And these are adults. It's not like, oh, they're getting younger. They're just getting dumber. And that's what was happening. And I cared about the show too much. I cared too much. But the bottom line is that Hardwick, that's what he is, I would say. Everyone's like piling on him, going, yeah, he is a jerk. I could have said, yeah, I mean, that's what you would hear. Like, you're just hearing people say, I mean, being a jerk, is that a reason to be not work? I mean, you can't even be a jerk. You're not allowed to raise your voice. That's grounds for being fired. I've gotten fired for doing my job. I've gotten fired for.
How did you get fired?
I'll tell you a couple of times I did were.
This is where we cut off the Facebook Live.
Oh, we're still on Facebook?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought we were off Facebook.
It was too good. I wanted to keep it going.
Enjoy it.
For my Facebook Live freaks, and I think my freaks are your freaks.
You got it.
Where can people, you got a special that's coming out. We're going to talk about, if you want to hear about Brody's special, you got to listen to the rest of this on iTunes tomorrow. When's the special coming out?
Comes out June 19th. It's released, actually. Tuesday, June 19th.
On what?
On iTunes, and then the stand-up video iTunes, the album's on Amazon.
And then where can people find you socially? Social media.
Social media, Brody is me friend. Brody, you good guy, you me friend, based off Tony and Mr. Lee, my busboys in New York. Brody is me friend. That's on Twitter. That's on Instagram. And you can find me, all the regular places.
This is the great Brody Stevens.
Yes.
I'm going to ask you that question, Brody. Tell us about how you got fired from a couple jobs, apparently.
Well, I mean, only warm-up wise. And I'll tie it into. That's good. Okay. Well, when I was just talking about being fired, getting back to like people not knowing me. When I worked on Zach Galifianakis had a talk show on VH1, Late World with Zach. This is like 2004, something like that. And I was doing all the audience warm-ups at Fox Sports. And then Zach brought me in to do the pilot in the first couple episodes. And the audience was essentially the same audience from Best Damn Sports Show. I knew most of the audience. So I was doing the audience warm-up and, working there and all that stuff. And after a couple shows, we got I think when I've been after like the first test show, I got a call and they said, yeah, they're going to use somebody else with the audience. They're not going to bring you back. And I go, what? Because the guy, Fred Graver, who's a producer somewhere, thought I scared the audience. An audience
because you're over the top, not loud, but you're boisterous.
I was doing audience warm up. They wanted high energy. I did what I was doing. So they let me go, and then Zach was able to get me back. I came back and I did that, but that's a time like he didn't know me. I got fired. Then I got fired. I was working at a Nikki Glazer. I mean, Nikki didn't. I don't know what happened. I don't think she had me fired, but it was at Comedy Central, and it was Nikki Glazer show, and I was doing the warm up there, and did the first couple shows, and I thought it was okay. And then I got an email and they said, what can we do to make it more energetic? And I was just kind of like going with it the first shows. I wasn't fighting in it. I was letting them do their stuff. And then they said, like, what could we do to make it, more energetic? And I go, why don't you play some music when we're loading the audience and give me more than like 5 minutes to warm them up? Let's get some music and let me warm them up. Okay. So the next week, we had more time. They played music. I did my warm-up. Everyone loves it. Oh, Brody, you're doing a great job. We love it. They're all talking about you. I come back the next week, same thing. We love it. Great job. Next week, come back, do it. Then I went to Arizona for something, and I called back, and I said, just calling to get my call time. And they go, yeah, they're gonna, use the other guy. I got fired, just like that. And so then I asked the guy, so why did I get? I mean, why? Oh, do you know why? And I just did on the phone. I was just kind of like doing investigative questions, and I said, do you know why? Anything like why? What happened? He says, oh, I think we had a couple complaints. And I said, what? Really? It was like, he says, yeah, a couple audience members. And I'm thinking, audience members, freaking doped up, paid audience members. That's what you're talking about? And then he said, well, maybe an executive too. Who knows? So then I ended up talking to the producer, the head director, producer guy, and he essentially said it was because a couple audience members walked out. And I go, you're getting rid of me because of frickin' paid audience members. And then he says, also, I talked to you on the floor and I just didn't think you were like, you didn't look me in the eye. He told me, like, meaning like, I don't think you were into the show. And I go, look you in the eye. I go, you came down and talked to me in the middle of the show. I've done 3,000 television audience warm-ups. I've never, ever had somebody come up to me, a producer or writer, and go, you didn't look me in the eye. And I don't think you're involved in the show. And that's why I got fired for that and a complaint. And then that didn't feel good, of course. And then that show got canceled. It didn't come back. So that was a time. And then
can you say the show?
It was Nikki Glazer. It was not safe. It was not safe for
Nikki Glazer.
Yeah, and I thought I did a good job. I did Jeselnik's show for 2 seasons. He loved it. I did Jeff Ross's The Burn for 2 seasons. He loved it. I did Ridiculousness for 4 seasons with Rob Dyrdek. So I did Chelsea for 400 shows. I've done a lot of different shows. I did Wanda Sykes. I got let go from that too, but that's a whole other thing.
We'll get into it, dude.
It's not even worth it. I'm just being let go over, it's because I'm doing warm up. Your warm up is the last to be hired, first to be hired. You know what I'm saying? So
why is that?
They don't factor it in. They don't realize how important the audience warm up is, how they, help set the energy. They help get everything, set up, lined up.
Do you think, does an audience warm up, is it based on, okay, the host is, say, Jimmy Kimmel, so Don and Jimmy are friends, they're going to have a good energy together, or you and Zach, if Zach...
Yeah, that can help. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, do they factor in the host, like with Gary Cannon, he's great for Conan because they're, friends.
Right. They can factor that in. Yes. I don't think Don probably interacts with Jimmy that much other than when he brings him out. So I guess there's something to that. I mean, I would bring out Chris Hardwick. Chris would talk to me, so I think that I think what I feel and what I say and all that stuff is, I think people are starting to see it today. Like, I was ahead of the curve on a lot of these issues. I was on the front lines, and now everyone talks about you can't say anything, or guys are getting, oh, you're not taking your meds, or you can't say this, you can't say that. So I felt that, these things that I see now, it's not that I'm not surprised by it.
Let's get into taking your meds, because on your show, Enjoy It, HBO Go, you opened your cell. It was like real reality TV. Like, you showed it all.
Well, I mean, yes, but the only reason I did is because it was already out there. It's not something I wanted to do necessarily.
But I think to see it visually is different. Like, you could talk about right now not being on, whatever you're on or off. People go, okay, but to see it, like to see you go and get a prescription for, Lamictal or,
Well, I mean,
I think really drives it home.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I feel like meds, it's like you just have to be careful with them. And I never like took any kind of medication growing up. I played sports. I didn't do any of that. And then when I started doing comedy, when I went to Seattle and I started doing comedy, and it was like stressful. It was hard to do. I'm not that kind of guy who puts himself out there. I didn't like to. And it was like, didn't feel good, but I would get laughs. Oh, it's funny when you get mad, but it was bothering me physically. I didn't like it. So, and I was always like thinking, I was like sensitive, thinking all the time, too hard on myself. And then I this is in Seattle, and I learned about like, about that. Oh, maybe they have medications that help you relax a little bit. So I looked into that, and I go, well, maybe I could take something that takes the edge off. And that's what I did. I went up to Seattle, and I tried this med that did take the edge off.
Do you mind saying what it was?
Oh, it was Luvox. What are you doing? You're typing what?
I'm promoting. Instagram, Twitter, saying, hey, look who's on my couch, out tomorrow.
Okay.
A lot of people ask me how the podcast is doing so well right now. And I do the little things that probably other people don't. Most people don't put out a pre-podcast tweet or Instagram picture. But now everyone tonight going to sleep, or maybe they're at the Comedy Store right now, go, oh, Brody's on Earl tomorrow.
Right, there you go.
A couple extra 100 listens.
There you go. Yeah, so I took it, and I think it did help, like, take the edge off me. But it was, and I went to New York. I didn't take anything. It's when I came back, and I was this whole like Facebook and the promotion stuff. It's stressful. When I got into comedy, I wasn't doing what email wasn't around, social media wasn't around. These things weren't around. So when I got into it, I didn't have those responsibilities. And so then when you get into Facebook, it was like I needed something to take the edge off. It was like, this is like stressing me out somewhat.
Because you're throwing yourself out there.
Yeah, but I never had problems with anybody in high school, nothing in college, nothing in Seattle, nothing in New York, nothing. And so when I started taking my doctor, my regular doctor said, here, take this. You'll take a little bit of the edge off or what have you. And I did. And it did take the edge off. It was because I took Luvox, and when I went to New York, I didn't take anything. I didn't have any problems in New York. Nobody said, oh, this guy's out of control. I played baseball at Arizona State at a high level. I can't handle pressure. I can't handle responsibility.
But do you find the pressure, like in baseball, if you pitch a bad game, you could maybe blame the catcher. He gave me the wrong signals, or the coach.
No, I blame myself usually.
But I mean, I'm saying you could. But I find in stand-up the pressure is brutal because there's no one to blame. You wrote the joke. You're saying the joke. Now, when it goes great, that's what makes it a great business. You get all the reward. But I think there's more pressure in stand-up than any business on earth.
I don't know.
I mean, unless you're the president of the country.
You don't think like playing baseball is more stressful out there in front of like 50,000 people on TV, these cameras? I mean,
I think playing a team sport is, of course it's stressful.
Yeah. I mean, you do comedy, it's like half these guys have their acts memorized. You're up there, you're reciting your lines.
But I mean, it's all on you. Like in baseball.
What about when you're pitching? It's very individual.
The focus is on you, but you could, blame the umpire for a small strike zone, and
you could blame a bad crowd.
You could, but when I've been on shows with you and maybe struggled, or Brian Holtzman and struggled, and then see you guys kill, it ain't the crowd, it's me.
Well, yeah, I never blame the crowd. I mean, but I'm saying I have blamed the crowd. Most people say you should be able to get anybody. I mean, sometimes laughing. It's not possible. Right. But
I guess my point is I see why you took what you took, because stand-up is, I think, the spotlight is smaller
Yeah, but when I took Luvox, it relaxed me. I said to myself, why didn't I take this in college? It probably would have taken the edge off.
Right.
Is what I'm saying. Like, that's all I needed. I wasn't like, oh, I'm depressed. I don't know why all of a sudden. I knew why I was just like idle time. So I was staring in the mirror, like, but this comes from childhood stuff. Do you understand? So everything says it comes from your childhood, and it does. So I needed something to take the edge off, to have the wheels like stop thinking. And then comedy was difficult for me. That's why a lot of people would drink, go up there. They had to drink. I wasn't a drinker.
Or drugs.
Or drugs. I wasn't doing that. But I did take the medication, and I'm gonna say it put me in a good mood, but I think it did take some of the edge off. It gave me some kind of buzz almost. And I would think to myself, I should have taken this in college. I would have been like more relaxed out there, possibly. So, but then I go to New York, and because I went to a different state, I couldn't take my prescription over there, and I just went off it. It was like no big deal, and I wanted to go to New York. I lived in New York, wanted to do comedy. Then when I came back here in 2000, around 2001 or what have you, is when I went to the doctor. I go, this Facebook and all this stuff, is there anything I can like? Because it is, yes, comedy was stressful. Working was, and I didn't feel bad about taking it because comedians talked about that kind of stuff. And I took it before it like took the edge off. So there's no shame. There wasn't a shame issue with it. So I did that. And then I took it like on and off for like 8 years or whatever. So I never knew that it was dangerous to stop your meds cold turkey. Nobody told me. So when I did have and that's what I tell people. I say a couple things. If you're taking a medication and you feel good, just keep taking it. That means it's working. That's one rule of thought. You're taking a medication and it feels good, just stay on it. Like you want to get off it, that's where you have your problems. You're adjusting, if you are going to adjust, you should do it with a doctor. So for my situation, when I had my issue, when people go, oh, Brody had a breakdown.
Because you went into a hospital, right? For those that didn't watch the show, or it's been a couple years.
Yes, and Kanye went to hospital too, so I kind of led the way for that.
You opened up for Kanye. But you were in
UCLA. Kanye went to UCLA.
The psych ward.
Well, that's where they put you. This is what happened. So I'm working at Chelsea. I'm doing warm up. I'm doing my spots at the Comedy Store. I was in The Hangover. I'm doing stuff.
The #1 R-rated movie of all time.
You got it, until Ted knocked it off, and then Hangover 2. Okay, so, and I'm doing warm up, and I knew that Zach always wanted to do some kind of show with me. So I knew I had something other than warm up down the road that could happen. But I still did my job with the warm up, but it was like, I had almost nothing to lose. Like I'm going to grow out of it because I have this TV thing possibly, but I was still doing a good job. So doing the warm up, and then I kind of like butted heads at the Chelsea show. But again, you're doing warm up. You're going to butt heads when you're bringing energy. It's the hardest job. So I do this pilot with Zach. It gets picked up, and I was like just even keel because it's like a pilot presentation got picked up. Okay, good. Then we do the pilot. Good. They like that. Then they bought the pilot. So I'm staying in the pocket, just doing my thing. And my friends or my people that I was working with, oh, you got to take a victory lap. Have fun. This is great. You don't seem like you're excited. And I was excited. But they were saying, go have fun. Do this. So I was booked to go to Dublin, Ireland, and then Montreal. So those two things to go to. So I'm thinking, I'm going to go to Dublin. I'm going to have some fun there. And then I read up because I was taking my meds. I was just taking there was 20 milligrams of Lexapro. And they said, well, if you want to go drink beer, somebody said that I want to go drink beer. I just cut back on my meds for that night or that little trip. So I went there and I just cut back a couple nights, and my shows were good. I felt good. I was able to drink beer, no problems. then I flew directly to Montreal from Dublin. And the first day I'm there, I'm feeling great. And then the next day, boom, I got hit with this crazy flu, couldn't swallow, the worst I felt like in years. And it just hit me. And so then I had to cancel shows, and I go downstairs to the clinic. They have the festival doctor, and he said, I have strep throat. So he looked at me, he says, take the Z-Pack, give me an antibiotic. He says, you'll feel better in 24 hours. So I couldn't swallow, and I was feeling good when I got there when I landed in Montreal that first day, and I figure I'll just I think I was taking I cut my meds down to 10 milligrams because I was feeling good, just keep it up. But then the sickness hit me, boom, I couldn't even swallow. Take the Z-Pack. The next day I feel better. I feel good. And I'm going, I haven't taken my med for a couple days. I feel good. Maybe I'll just keep doing it. And then I felt better. And then I did my shows. I did a few more shows and I was happy. And then I was thinking, okay, I'm going back to LA. They asked me to host TMZ. I have some cool things going on. We're going to film this. I'm going to go do some Dodger stuff. So I'm excited. And I was in Montreal and I felt fine. I was having fun, having a good time. Mike Favorman was there, a comedian friend of ours. And he was one guy who said, Brody, you're talking a lot. He told me that I was talking a lot. And I go, I'm just feeling good. So then I come back, right? I land back in LA and a couple of my friends saw me. One was mad. He goes, what's with you? Are you on drugs or something? I go, no, I'm happy. I'm fine. And I wasn't on drugs. I was on that Z-Pack and my meds, I was either wasn't taking them or I was taking half of it. Because I was tapering down, but on my own. That's a mistake. I didn't realize because I've done it before. But you tie in the Z-Pack, and then you tie in the traveling, and I'm not going to say the pressure. But when I came back, and these guys are coming down on me, what's wrong with you? I go, I'm happy. You're telling me to have fun, and then I would go to they were my buttons were being pushed a little bit. And then I did the TMZ and I did a good job. So I felt like I did TMZ, I did a good job, and I felt like, okay, I could be doing this media stuff. And then, so I did TMZ, they're coming down on me and I'm not taking my meds. And it was just a perfect storm of F you. You guys going to tell me what to do? And then it was everyone who was not nice to me in the past, I went on Twitter and go F you. I work for TMZ now, which I did. I did TMZ. I'm not saying I worked for them, but I did it. But these guys, people were pushing my buttons. So, and I pushed back. And then I went to Starbucks in Studio City, and I just was around these actor types. I could just pick up their negative energy because I was happy. You see, I wasn't on those meds. I was happy. So they picked up on this happy energy, and I can tell they're being haterish. I go, what are you negative about? Because you're not in a movie? You're not on TMZ? I could tell because I had nothing. There was not saying no filter, but I was being real. So I was pulling out these negative actor types and having confrontations with them. I was combative a little bit, but I was right. And then, so I remember I went home, and I also said when I was saying these people were coming down on me, I go, I have a gun, because they called me in tears, Brody, what's wrong with you? I go, I'm fine. I'm happy. And they just didn't, again, they cared. I'm not saying my friends didn't care. And I'm not saying that I wasn't acting out of character. I'm saying it was a combination of a lot of things on top of the meds. I wouldn't call it a breakdown. They go, you had a breakdown. No. You were poking a guy who probably shouldn't have been poked. You can poke people, if you poke, that's what they were doing. They're used to we could poke Brody, it was fine. Now you poke me, it's I'm not fine. Why? Because I'm not the warm-up guy anymore. Now you told me to celebrate. See what I'm saying? So I came out of my shell maybe, and they weren't used to it. There was a little bit of that, like, oh, you're not being the Brody we know. Now you're, and it's like I couldn't like test out. But the reason why I was like testing out, part of it was because I didn't have those meds holding me back. So I went to Starbucks, same thing. I like saw a guy walk in there. The guy had like similar shoes to me. He had a Dodger shirt on, or Dodger hat. I had a Dodger shirt. And I go, oh, those are cool shoes. I got the same ones. Oh, look at the hat. That's a connect. I didn't say connection. And he was like, I'm on the phone. I go, why are you being a jerk? I'm just being a nice guy. And he goes, I go, what's wrong with you? And this is like a few years ago. I go, what's wrong with me? I go, this guy's being an a-hole. I go, I can't be nice to somebody. And so he complained, of course. And then the cops came. But this was also, here's the other thing, the night before, because I put out some of those tweets.
I remember.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, this is weird.
But here's the deal. I was one of the first guys to do it. How many people have gone on Twitter meltdowns since then? A lot of people have gone on Twitter tirades. I'm not defending, but I am on the ground floor of a lot of things. I was on the ground floor of maybe lashing out on Twitter. Did I have a gun? No. Was I going to attack comedians? No. But were they jerks to me? Yeah.
What was that one video, though, of you were in the car and I think there was a kid in like a 7-Eleven lot? Can you explain that one to, if it...
That one was...
This is around that time, right?
Yeah, these guys are all over me, like coming on, like, what's wrong with this? Brody, we're worried about you. And that's what like added stress to me. Like, what are you worried about? I'm good. I'm happy, which I was. So I go to 7-Eleven down the street, and there's a guy there. I'll say a transient type guy or
homeless,
but not. I'm gonna say maybe vagrant, maybe transient, not like
a Boone Shakalaka type.
Yeah, but maybe a little bigger actually, because he's kind of small and frail. So I pull up, and I think I went in, I was getting in my car, and I see this guy like walking up to cars and asking people for, like panhandle, like going up to cars though. So I see this girl like who was like scared in her car. I could tell like he was coming up. She like rolled up her window, and he was like, "Excuse me." And then I rolled the window down. I go, "Why don't you stop effing with people? You're scaring people. Get the F out of here." That's what I said. And then,
but who was recording that?
I was. I held the camera up.
And what was his response?
I don't know. Somebody was going to like step towards me, and I left. I like took off. I mean, I was honestly, I was sticking up for the girl. He was, the girl was uncomfortable. I saw it. So that's what I did. I was sticking up for the girl. And then I probably shouldn't have put up on the computer, but I was so in like, in a performance state. And that's the other thing. I was putting these tweets up, and people, they loved it. I was getting traction. People liked the tweet. So I just kept doing it. But I never had a gun. I never wanted to hurt anybody. I never wanted to, in that way, like, random attacks on people. I got in an argument at the Comedy Store with somebody. I mean, people get into fights. Remember I told you I was getting fired for raising my voice? People call the cops on you if you get in an argument. It's like that's what was going on. So I was kind of like, okay, you want to keep pushing? I'll push. And, they sent the cops to my house. That kind of like early on when they were like worried. And I would have liked if, my friends came together as a group, maybe. I don't know. I could have just used a vacation. But the whole thing was they did care. I'm not saying people don't care. It wasn't like nobody cares about me. It's like you care too much almost. And then it was just, I did this stuff on Twitter. So I figured it was already out there in the open, and nobody said, "Hey, let's show this on TV." I said, "Yeah, maybe we'll do it." Like I felt like it was weird putting it on TV, but since people already knew about it, like through Twitter, I figured like, okay, I'll put it out there. And then people told me, said, Brody will probably help people. It's kind of a rock and roll thing. And you know what? Looking back on it, it was. Because honestly, you look at Kanye West, he went into even though people are like, people are down on Kanye West because of all this Trump stuff, but they're not down on him because he went to the hospital. It's like you can go to the hospital. It's like accepted these days. It's almost like a rehab. I mean, I could have gone to a rehab. I could have easily have been sent to Hawaii for 10 days. I could have, but I felt like these guys were coming down on me. And because I didn't have that buffer of the medication, you were getting like a true, honest reaction. And that I'm not blaming anybody, but I feel as though that it's like none of my sports friends, guys. What I'm saying, like this didn't happen in sports. This would be like, Brody, go home. People like you get into a fist fight on a baseball team. It's like, okay, that happens. You get into a fist fight with a comedian or somewhere. Oh, what's wrong? Something's wrong with you. You know what I mean? It's like boys can't be boys. Can't like so. And when you're a big guy or you're older like myself or what have you, it can like freak people out. I think I was just being in Hollywood, being around these kind of like looking at it now. I feel like I was ahead of the curve because you're looking at, even with my show, it was like, I'm from the Valley. I'm a blue collar guy. The people that were involved in the show, the writers and some of the producers, they're all like from Venice. They're all like skateboarders from Venice. So the first season was like, we're doing a show about a guy from the Valley. That was the HBO one. They kind of like did a show about me. Then the second season, when it was on Comedy Central, I feel like, okay, it's on Comedy Central. I got to add some comedy. I'm pushing it. I'm feeling good. And then I had some problems with that with some of the guys because I feel like they weren't completely in tune with my stand-up.
The Comedy Central people.
Not the Comedy. Well, some guys working on the show because they weren't. Since that first season on HBO Go, my comedy got a lot better. My comedy improved. So the second go around, it's like, I'm not that guy who's doped up. That's the other thing. Like, when I had that, and they called the cops. I went to the hospital. It was like out of control. And then they put me on heavy meds. They put you on Depakote. They put me on Seroquel. I was like on the heaviest dosages. It was like a chemical straitjacket. And you saw me. I was like in a haze.
I mean, there were nights at the Comedy Store when I'm not trying to be funny, or I'm not roasting you right now.
Okay.
That you look like Jack Nicholson at the end of Cuckoo's Nest. Like you were there, but you weren't there.
Well, I'll tell you what. When I was on Depakote,
what is that?
These are heavy drugs.
But what is its intended effect?
Depakote is like, I want to say lithium, maybe.
Okay.
And then Seroquel is the same kind of thing, like antipsychotic. They knock you out. So they just make you sleep.
Right.
But if you smoke pot with the Depakote or the Seroquel, not a good mix. So those nights, like when you saw me, like because I smoked pot on it, is what I did. You can't do that. Like, look at me now. Pretty good, right?
Very clear,
Yeah, and I smoke pot.
Today.
Yeah, all the time. But because with that Seroquel and that pot, it didn't. I remember I'd be sitting there like I'm in a zone. I knew I was zoned out. But I was on these pills and it just was bad. And I felt like I was given these pills because I acted out. I'm not going to be on these pills the rest of my life. They're making me depressed. So I was able to like slowly get off them where I'm not on that stuff anymore.
Are you on anything?
I take 10 milligrams of Lexapro and I take 200 milligrams of Lamictal, which is
every day.
Yeah, which is, I just take it because You're supposed to. They say if you're taking Lexapro, you should have like a little something beneath it, like a
buffer.
That's what they call it. So I don't even notice I don't even feel it. I just take it because I'm supposed to. Honestly, I could probably taper down, but as I mentioned earlier, there's no need to. So in terms of like side effects, I don't think I have any. But that, I don't think. I think that you just have to be careful. It's like guys could go on a bender. You've heard stories. I just feel like what happened to me, and then sometimes like people will joke about, oh, you had a breakdown. That just a couple times recently, people said that. So that makes me not really want to promote the show. My old, hey, watch my
break in other people's minds breakdown.
Yeah.
But comics love to see other people in that state of mind that you were in, like either because they're insecure about themselves or they just, frankly, like it's like some comics love watching another comic bomb.
Right.
Because they feel bad about their shitty act or shitty lives. Oh, Brody's fucked up. This is great.
I think most people were like on my side. I have not like gotten too much any like negative. I think comedians like me. And that's the other thing. Like I trust my instincts.
You are a comics comic.
Yeah, comics like me. So, and I can like also know that because through my experiences, people may not get me right at first. So
like I didn't.
Right. But then I feel like even today, like I'll say like I'm on stage, I go, if they don't laugh at something, I go, so you're not laughing? Okay. Well, are you on the show? Are you on the marquee? Did you park for free? Do they give you Red Bull?
Free.
So I'd listen to me. If I think something's funny, it may be funny. I have no reason to lie. So I pull that approach. Like I always feel like, because when you're different, I'm constantly have to reprove myself. I would have that with these TV shows. You'd get like a new executive producer every year on a show, and they go, I don't get this guy. I go, I've been here for a year doing a great job. And then you get them on, then they get you. And then a year later, another guy comes in. What is with this guy yelling? And it's like you're constantly having to resell yourself. And as I mentioned earlier, it's like, it's harder and harder these days. So that's why I really don't do the warm up. And then on top of that, there aren't the shows. It's an energy. It's pushing. And I'm only saying it based off stuff I've seen happen. So, and it's proven. It's easy to, putting out energy and positive vibes, it is proven. You put that out, something good comes back. That,
I didn't used to believe that, but I very much so do now.
And it's not guaranteed and it's not easy, but your chances, you give yourself a chance. And people like to be around that. People like to be around uplifting, positive people.
Well, I think in our business, people want to be around people they know are easy to work with, and they'll do a good job. They'll show up on time. And then I think that's the same thing with you and me.
Yeah, but you also want funny. Well, you see what I'm saying? Like, yeah, it's like sometimes the guys are funny, but they might be a little hard to work with. So you have to find that thing. That's why you got to have like proper, representation of you. Like, I'm a comedian. I'm an artist. For me to have like, I know you got to like look out for money or whatever, but certain things you have to have a manager speak for you, because it's like, I'm a nice guy. I could be taken advantage of, but if you have a manager speak for you, then you don't have to.
I think a manager's role is to be the bad guy.
Right. And I put myself in situations where, I say yes to things.
Right. Because you're a workaholic.
Well, I think I'm a nice guy, and I also think like some of these jobs I like to do them. Not I'll do a job that is kind of cool, and maybe something's involved with baseball or what have you. But no, I have fun. I definitely, I'm glad. Like my goal was like to do this special. To get this 1 hour, it's like 40. I don't know. It's like close to an hour.
And where was it done at?
At the Comedy Store.
Late night, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. I was getting all these late night spots that Tommy would give me, and then Adam, and I felt like they're giving me the stage time. I get a cut of the door. I'm from LA. I'm living in LA. I'm getting to work in LA. I don't have to worry about the travel. My mom is in Southern California. All these things, the Dodgers, all these things.
The Palm Springs area, correct?
Right.
I don't want to say the city.
That's Palm Desert. Sorry.
Rancho Mirage.
That area. So it just made sense for me. And then I did it so many times, and I felt like, you know what? I've done it so many times. I might as well capture this.
Right.
And that's what I was trying to do for like 2 or 3 years. Like try to get something where we just capture the night. Yes, it's my special, but I'm also showing you what this is late at night. And this is what I got. Sorry. Meaning like I am not packing it in a theater. So, but the special, we shot it, and
you happy with the final result?
I'm happy with it. I don't think it's perfect. Nothing would be perfect, but I think I'm happy with it. What I've seen, what I did with it, it captured that night. If you're going to say like, did it capture what I did that night? Yes,
I was there.
But you know, some nights are better than others. You know, and I was doing a special. So did it capture me that night doing the special? Yes, it did. So I feel like what I've seen, it did. Now looking back on it, would I do things a little differently or this? Maybe.
Like what?
Well, I wanted I don't know if we would edit it, right? The company that edited it, they do a lot of specials. So it was edited like the editor didn't know me. Do you see what I'm saying? I need to have, on whatever project I'm doing next, I would like to have director, editor, you know,
who know me, and I felt like the concept I was putting out, I was fighting it, not because it wouldn't work. It's because they didn't know. So they would see me and they would like try to make it like this is how they do the special. And I go, well, this is kind of a late night. It's not a typical thing. And right. It's not a packed theater at 8 p.m.
Exactly. It's late night.
At the store, which I don't think, unless you've been there, unless you're Hermosa Beach, Mary and Donald.
Right.
You know, late night at the Laugh Factory, I'm sure it's fine. Late night at the Improv is good. Hermosa Magic, but nothing beats late night at the Comedy Store. You have to have been through it to get it. Yeah,
and it was a pretty good one. It was you had people, a thin crowd, and it started off crowded, then it tapered down. Like I would show like the packed house of all the comedians, and then throughout the night with like a timestamp, and then I come out around midnight and I do my set, and it's crowd work, going through the crowd, drumming, yelling. I got a lot of jokes in. I mean, it was like a year and a half ago, so I think I'm a different comedian now, like more evolved.
Oh, sure.
So there's a little bit of that looking at it. And then again, I'm not complaining at all like, oh, I wish it was this and wish it was that. But I think because of that, maybe it gives it a kind of a look. It is kind of like a professional. It's like trying to be professional, but it's also getting that zaniness in. It looks good, but there's also has that zaniness in. And I think like with these camera adjustments I made and some edits and some context, because there wasn't context. They didn't know. And then I had to add these certain things to give it that context. And I think if you know me, you'll like it. If you don't know me, you'll probably be interested in it. But you know, it's like I already feel like if I was to do another special, I think I'd do something more mellow, or maybe something more about the preparation. I got it in. I'm not embarrassed about it. I feel good that it's all me and there's no drama. There's nothing with this stand-up special that there's seriousness about or any kind of like drama. It was all me for the most part, and that's the way it goes. I'm curious. I don't know how it's going to be received, to be honest with you. I don't know. I don't know what kind of numbers. It's not, it's on iTunes, but the album's on Amazon. Maybe somebody will get they'll get the album on Amazon. They go, hey, I want to see the video part of it. Who knows? But to me, it's not the end all be all, but it's something I wanted to do. I think all comedians want to do a special,
sure,
do their own thing. And I would say I got about 75% of what I wanted to do on the special. With everything that I was given, everything involved, 75% I got in. And that's great. This next one, I want to get in 90 to 95%.
But would you have someone, and I don't say these few names because they're famous, but because they get you, like, and you've worked with them, someone like a Zach or a Sarah Silverman who goes, Brody, this is what we want. This is what we saw when we worked with you. Do this, and this is going to be a great special. Instead of like someone who'd never seen you before.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, the one that didn't see me before, I was able to. I mean, I did my show, and I just had to help pick these edits and add, like I said, add some context and that sort of thing. Yeah, if Zach wanted to do a special, or if I pick somebody that knows,
like a Chelsea, people. I'm not saying her, but or even Don, like you known Don for what, 12, 15 years. Maybe he comes in and consults like, hey, Brody, remember when we did this? That would be good, or something like that. I
mean, these days you can raise probably a couple, $3,000 to do a special.
Oh, it's never been easier.
So
I think to do stuff on your own.
Yeah. So I'm going to let this come out there, see what happens with it.
And it's out when?
June 19th.
On
very
iTunes
soon.
video.
On iTunes. It's on Amazon also, the album portion. And again, I'm not BSing. I like it. It's good. It's not amazing. It's different. I think, like I said, if you know me, you'll like it. If you don't know me, you might be interested by it. And I think it would also maybe, hopefully, leaving them to want more. What's up next with this guy? I'd like to see this guy,
roast battle.
I don't want to do. I'm not into roast battle. I'd be more into like doing my set, like the prep, going to the Comedy Store, doing
almost like a documentary special. Like they show you leaving your house.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to do. But even the next one, I feel like, and guys have done, you can do whatever you want. I do shows in Hollywood. I do shows outdoors. I do shows in, crazy bars. You can do something like that where you're doing like it's like One Night with Brody, where I do 20 minutes at this venue, 20 minutes at that venue, 20 minutes at that other venue. Boom. That's a special right there. You know what I mean? Like have somebody come around. This is Brody. This is my special. We're going to do 20 minutes outdoors. We're going to do 20 minutes in this crazy environment. And then we're going to do 20 minutes or whatever. You're going to see and that's been done, I'm sure. But again, it's just doing it. It's content, being organized. I think if you ask me, I'm a comedian. I know that the Comedy Store is popular. I try to put all of my energy and all my good thoughts into the Comedy Store. It's like I'm ride or die with the Comedy Store.
Oh, so am I. I mean, but like I've told people this, when people ask me what my goal is, I always reference you, and I'm not trying to kiss your ass, but like I love how you can play any room in the city. Not many comics can. Some people are Comedy Store comics.
Right.
Some are improv. Some are UCB. That's not stand up, but they do stand up. Some, I remember when I used to see you at the Knitting Factory.
Yep.
you could walk into a black room and be like, oh my God, Brody's here. Like, that's what I think most comics should strive for. Like, you could play anywhere and do well anywhere. At the Comedy Store, late night, at the Improv at 8 p.m., at Laugh Factory at whatever, 10 p.m.
You'd like to be able to do that, yeah.
But you can. You're one of the few who can go into, D'Elia's another one. He does well wherever he plays. Some comics, they kill at the store. They don't do well at the Improv, or vice versa.
Yeah.
Like Dane Cook's not a Comedy Store guy per se.
Right.
He's an Improv Laugh Factory guy.
Yeah.
The store is maybe not his energy.
I'm a Comedy Store guy.
But you could play everywhere else.
Yeah, and I like the other places too. Don't get me wrong. I like those places.
What is it about the store, though? Because I've tried to figure this out. Like, to me, it's like part of it's the names on the walls, like the Stanley Cup. Like, your name's on that wall forever. We're the same age. We'll be dead in probably 50 years. In 100 years, our names will still be where they are.
Well, unless it's torn down or painted over.
Oh, don't say that.
Well, you never know. I mean, look, Yankee Stadium was gone.
Right.
It happens.
I find that every comic in the country, it's much like the Cellar in New York or the Stand. Like, you want in at those two clubs. People in New York, they want the Comedy Store. Why? What makes the store so special to you?
I mean, to me, Mitzi made that place where it's personality driven. It was about your point of view, your voice, your character, your jokes. You could be weird and different. Whereas like these other clubs, weird and different is they don't want that. They want jokes. They want relatability. They want, this is my best friend. Whereas the Comedy Store, Mitzi, I know she probably liked wacky and
like a
different.
Kinison in the robes and a Dice with the leather jackets.
Exactly.
Who may not have been accepted at, say, the Laugh Factory.
Even Paulie with his crazy hair and his shorts and all that, the totally Paulie years, everything. So Mitzi put that, she's to thank for that. And then I think also, it's dark and simple. Go to the Laugh Factory. It's bright and happy. You're at a McDonald's. Improvs has a little bit of that as well. But the Comedy Store is like you can get lost there. You could hide out in the corner and observe, literally, because it was so dark. I grew up in LA, and my mom dated Jack, her boyfriend, who lived up the road here up on Altaloma. So I'd look out the patio. This is like in the mid 80s. I'd look out off the balcony and I could see the lights of the Comedy Store. I would see it. And I was a baseball guy. I like baseball. I could also see the lights from Dodger Stadium. I'd be looking at that too. But I could tell there was energy, something happening there at that Comedy Store. And when I came back in 90, when I was graduating in 93, and I was looking into trying comedy. The football guy said, when I was doing the acting class, he said, Brody, you should do stand-up. You're funny. That's when I started, 93, I started looking into the stand-up. So when I came back to LA in the summer of 93, I worked on a student film. I was learning all about how filmmaking. And I was staying at my family's place in Tarzana. So I had 6 months to kind of figure things out. So worked on that student film, but then I said, I got to pursue the comedy. I got to try, see if I like it. Because I like the acting. I was getting laughs without trying. Why don't I try comedy? So I was looking through the LA Weekly, and there was really nothing there. And then they had the learning annex, the UCLA extension, and they had a stand-up comedy class. You saw stand-up comedy. 12 weeks, and it's taught by Sandy Seashore from the Comedy Store, and you have your final performance at the Comedy Store. So I knew, I get to perform at the Comedy Store, and I get to learn from Paulie's sister. That's cool. And then it's at UCLA, which I always liked UCLA, wanted to be a part of it. So was like a $300 course or something. I signed up, and every Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever it was, I would drive to UCLA from the Valley, and I was excited to go there. It was like, I'm going to UCLA. I'm going to go do my 2 minutes in front of my class. And I'd get there, and I'd be all excited, and I'd do my jokes, and, you know, some would work, some wouldn't. They would all like laugh at me for being me. Oh, it's funny when your jokes go bad. We laugh at that. So I knew back then people liked me even when my jokes were bad.
But they said the same thing about Johnny Carson. Like, some of his
same kind of stuff. And so the class would end, and I always talk to Sandy after the show. After class, I just like, you know, talk about comedy or UFOs, but it was mostly about stand-up. I just totally talked about stand-up. And I knew, like, having Sandy, that was one step from the Comedy Store. Basically, having her in my corner, learning everything through her, I knew I was getting that the Shore family energy. So I would do the class, and then every class I'd drive by the Comedy Store and I'd look at it. I would never go in, but I'd drive by Sunset Boulevard and I go, maybe one day I'll be in there. I don't know. I'm going to have my graduation class. And then like 12 weeks later, whatever, we had the graduation class on a Sunday night in the original room. It was packed. I had like 5 friends in there. And I went up and I did well. Boom. It was like 8 minutes. Crushed. I mean, pretty good. And then, but it's a bringer show. And then after, like, people were giving me their business cards. Hey, you know, I'm going to, you know, I'm sure that stuff still happens today. So I felt like I was a comedian. And then I did an open mic out in Chatsworth like a couple days later. And it was like, I can say it was dismal. It was just a lot different. And I said, I get it. I see how it is. And I understand, because I took the comedy workshop. I kind of like knew a little bit. And I said that I'm not going to go this route. I'm not saying I was disrespected, but I wasn't going to be felt like an outcast in my own neighborhood. I felt like I got the open mic scene. I just wasn't going to do that. I knew right there after one open mic in LA that I'll never do another one here. Not a bar open mic out in the Valley. Because I'm from the Valley. It was just not a bad experience, but it was an experience right away that I could see through the BS. I'm not some guy who moved to LA with stars in his eyes that ended up in the Valley at an open mic. Okay. I was like, I'm from the Valley. And now I got a guy who's hosting a show in the Valley who's going to kind of like call the shots on me. I didn't like it. And I wasn't mad. I just wasn't going to go that route. So what did I do? I went back to UCLA and learned about the business of comedy. So I treated comedy just like I did baseball in school, learned everything I could about it. That's soak it in, educate. So I learned all about the business. I learned about contracts. I learned how clubs were run. I learned about the business of it. And then the instructor, Danny Robinson, or Danny, I think he works at UTA or APA still. He said, if you want to do stand-up, he says, you got to get out of Los Angeles. Don't start here.
Yes, I agree.
That's what he told me. And literally, like a little while after that, they had the Northridge earthquake. And I was already researching, am I going to go to Phoenix, where I had friends, but no real scene, or Seattle, where I had family? And I was researching Seattle. It's like, wow, they're really, you know, my uncle said, come up here. They support the arts. They're into it. Whereas Phoenix, not so much. So I was working out in the Valley, just kind of spinning my wheels, and they had that earthquake, boom, in January of 94. A week later, I drove up to Seattle, and I just jumped into the open mics there. And that's where I met Joey Diaz, Josh Wolf, Craig Gass, Mitch Hedberg was up there.
What about the great Mr. Obayashi?
Yoshi was up there. Bushman was up there.
Didn't you and Yoshi work at a porn store?
Yoshi worked at worked at Taboo Video with Tana. I didn't work there.
Did you say Bushman was up there?
Yeah, Lehigh. Yeah.
Wow, that's
from Seattle. So yeah, we were all up there. And I sold t-shirts for the Seattle Supersonics. I worked at Red Robin. I did everything that I wanted to do in Seattle that LA was too spread out and too big for me. Seattle, you know, regular audience members would go to the comedy clubs, to the open mics. You had culture up there. And it was a big city, but you could also get around. So Seattle was good for me for 3 years, and I did my cable access show. People were like characters up there. You know, it was Seattle. They were interested in coming to LA, but not totally. And I found my voice in Seattle. And I remember Joey Diaz said, Brody, you got to go to New York. You got to go. They'll like you there. And I always wanted to go to New York. And then my friend got a job with the Yankees. So I had a reason to, go there a little bit. And I went out to New York and I just, same thing, jumped into the open mics. But those New York comedians were tough on me at first. Who's this new guy? And I said to myself, I was popular in Seattle. I was well-liked in college. It ain't me, it's them. So instead of getting upset or pouting or this, I just kind of weathered the storm. And they ended up coming around. And to this day, I'm still good friends with a lot of these guys. Some of them, it also revealed who they were, certain people. But so I did that, and the baseball prepared me for that. Moving up to Seattle prepared me for that. So when I came back to LA, it's it prepared all these steps prepared me. And then even today, when you see all this craziness going on in the world and on Twitter and in comedy and all that stuff, I've been through it before. So I'm prepared for it all, for the most part, you would think. So yeah, New York was good. And then I came back to LA and just, I got passed to the Bobby Lee. Right away, I got passed in there. So boom. And I just like being a part of the family there. It's having the name on the wall's cool. Getting my name up on the marquee when I get up there is nice, but it was never the end all be all.
Right. There are other, and I tell people, yes, you should aspire to be passed at the Comedy Store. To me, it's the number one club in the country, but there's other places.
Yeah.
If you're not in there yet, because to be honest, it's trying to get in at the Comedy Store now is like trying to get on an NHL team or NFL team. There's very few spots.
Right.
So, if you just wait till you get in at the store, it's going to be a while.
Yeah.
Even if you're fucking funny, even if you're a headliner. I get headliners coming up to me who tour the world going, how do I get in there? It's dude, just, it's luck, it's recommendations, it's hard work, it's, but the improv's happening.
Yeah.
There's other
clubs,
and if they're younger comics who aren't quite known yet, it's there's this the Hooters
on Wednesday nights.
The Hooters show / open mic after the show is a great place to be around store comics who can take a liking to you and recommend you for whatever. And there's many different avenues to get in at the store, not just the direct hanging out there.
Yeah, you can also you look at Roast Battle. Those guys made that out of nothing.
Tony. We did.
Yeah, exactly. Kill Tony, Don Barris. There's you can do it.
It's just like Rob Schneider said. You can do it.
I think, I don't want to say blessed, but I'm aware that I get those spots at those last spots in the OR or in the main room. Those Sam Kinison spots,
But you did exactly like what we just said. You maybe wouldn't have gotten in the store back then, so you went to Seattle. You meet Joey Diaz. He recommends you to New York. You kill it there. You meet Bobby Lee, probably through, hey, Joey Diaz, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Bam. You got in at the store through other avenues.
But you just keep doing your comedy. You feel that's my approach. Just be funny, and then people will ask you to be on the show. So that's another thing, comedians book other comedians. So be a nice guy, do a good job like you're saying, and they go, hey, I'll put you on the show. So I remember Largo early on, which is a popular show, still is. And Zach was doing it a bunch and he was a regular there. And I said, I'd like to do it one time. He says, don't worry, they'll ask you. I was wanted to do it. And then he told me Zach would tell me early on, just be funny. These guys will ask, people will ask you. So I just trusted my abilities. Look, I'm doing this show with David Spade. I'm going to help him out with, he's got a pilot coming up. I'm going to help him out on that. I've been going on the road with Spade. I did Aspen with him. I did San Jose. We did Irvine, Brea. We're going to do Ontario. I didn't plan that out. I met David maybe like 3 years ago. We did the Fox Sports show. I got recommended because I knew the Fox Sports guys. I worked there, George Greenberg. And so somehow my name came up. And then David started working at the Comedy Store. David knew Adam, Arizona State. I would see him. And then boom, 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 I got to go. So that's what you have to tell people. Like, just be funny, be nice, be in it, be supportive. And some of these things can happen,
That's like the great Jimmy Carr told me.
What did he say?
When I was expressing to him frustrations about certain situations in my comedy life, and I can't imitate him.
Right.
He just looked at me, put his head sideways a little bit and said, Earl, just worry about your side of the road, be funny, and you'll be all right.
Yeah.
It's like, it's so simple, that advice, but like when someone like Jimmy Carr says it, it's like, yeah, maybe you're right.
Yeah, just cream rises to the top, keep at it, believe. And then there's the other guys who, do the 1 in a million shot, go F it. I'm going to like totally go against the grain, and they make it. You would think like, and that's the other thing. You would think like, this person's never going to quote unquote make it. They make it. Or this person, you go, I know he's going to make it, or she, and they make it. So again, making it is, yeah, some people, like we're saying, like their goal is to get their name on the wall. It's like, that's not what it's all about. But then you'll hear somebody like probably Kevin Hart would say something like that. That was my goal, to get my name on the wall. And so there is that fire, that little, trivial as it may be, some people need that little fire. I mean, you have heard those success stories.
Well, there's different levels of making it. Like, what is making it to an open micer? I've made it. Oh, he did roast battle. Now he was on TV. To me, you've made it.
Really? I think. Well,
but
yeah.
Like to you, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. I'm just, to you, Zach's made it. To Zach, maybe Sandler's made it.
But does Zach think I made it?
Well, I don't know. You'd have to ask him.
What do you think?
I'm pretty sure he thinks you made it, but maybe, and then Zach maybe admires Sandler, and then Sandler probably admires Lenny Bruce, and Lenny Bruce admired Carl. I mean, it goes on forever,
right?
To making it.
Well, I think in America, making it is probably owning property, having a wife or a husband, having a child, having a dog, having a Prius.
And I do apologize for my dog's gas.
You sure that was your dog and not you?
It's pretty bad. I haven't walked her in a while. She's got bad gas. I gave her a few extra treats today. So
that did it.
Well, Brody,
how long have we talked for?
I think almost 2.5 hours. And I knew this would be like this. And I could talk to you another, we are at the 2 hour and 11 minute mark. So I think this might be a good, because my podcast fans tend to zone out after about the hour mark. So, but they're going to love this. But now for our iTunes crowd.
Okay.
Where can people find you on Twitter, Instagram?
Brody is me friend. Brody, you good guy, you me friend, based off Tony and Mr. Lee, my busboys in New York City. So you can find me, Brody is me friend, on Twitter. Brody is me friend on Instagram. You can find my special, Brody at Stevens, in the main room. You could find that on iTunes, and the album on Amazon. That's
June 19th.
Very soon, June 19th.
And people can also find you regularly at the Comedy Store.
I'm at the Comedy Store 3 nights a week. Also, of course, the Improv and the Laugh Factory, and just having a good time and podcasting. I'm over at All Things Comedy.
Yeah, what's your podcast?
Festival of Sports Friendship. And then we talk about sports, we talk about friendship, and
so people can find that on All Things Comedy.
Yeah, I'm on All Things Comedy. I've done about 50 or 60 episodes over there.
Great guys over there.
Yeah, great guys. You can check out my video Valley Vibes that I did through All Things Comedy. I did a tour of the Valley. Is that Lois?
That was me.
That was you. Okay. Well, on that note, no. I want to say thank you, Earl.
Dude, you're one of my inspirations in stand-up comedy, and I wish more people would aspire to be you. You've achieved great things in this business through just hard work, being liked, many more great things coming for you. And I thank you for doing this.
Thank you, Earl.
Guys, this is Inappropriate Earl with the great Brody Stevens on iTunes and SoundCloud tomorrow. It's Sunday night. And leave a review. Let us know you loved Brody. He'll come back maybe after the special. We'll talk baseball and hockey and we didn't get to a lot of things. Like if you're ever down and out, and I don't know if it's still on YouTube, but one thing that has always made me laugh when I'm depressed is watching Brody's MC the Tom Arnold roast. And
I was roasted. I was emceeing.
No, I'm sorry. It was the James Cameron roast.
James Cameron. Yep.
Tom Arnold was there. It is the fucking funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. It's great day as Bob Zaney, Ralphie May, Tom Arnold, Ed McMahon.
The late Ed McMahon.
Is that still on YouTube?
I believe so, yeah. And then who else was on? The girl was on it.
I don't remember the girl. I just all I remember is you.
Judy Tenuta.
Judy Tenuta. So please look up Brody Stevens on YouTube. I'm sure there's many great clips.
Yes, all things Brody.
And has a nice little button on the episode. I know you're probably sick of doing this, but can you do your big line from The Hangover?
Yeah.
All right. So you guys.
So I'm walking in.
You're walking in
to the police station. They have the
kids.
The kids. I walk in, given a tour. The three main guys. They stole a police car. It was Zach, Bradley Cooper, and the guy from The Office, Ed Helms. Yeah, Ed's my friend. I'm kidding. So they stole the police car. They were arrested. They were handcuffed to a bench. I walk in to the police station, giving kids a tour of the police station. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Officer Foltz, and this is The Hangover. Background, speeding, lights, sound, action. So after we take their mugshots, we bring them on down here where they wait to be interviewed by the arresting officers. Trust me, kids, you don't want to be sitting on these benches. We call this place Loserville.
Brody Stevens.
Yes. We call this place